Hello and welcome to Newsmax TV. I'm John Bachman. With us right now from Washington, D.C. is Grover Norquist, the president and founder of Americans for Tax Reform. Grover, great to talk to you again.
Good to be with you.
All right, there's a lot I want to get to today, including Eric Holder's comments on stand your ground laws. But first, let's start with immigration reform. I've had a chance to talk with a few House Republicans and congressional staffers over the last few weeks, and not one of them seemed real optimistic about the House passing any kind of immigration bill. But you are, and you actually agreed recently with Chicago Mayor Rahm Emanuel on this. Why are both you and the former House or White House Chief of Staff so optimistic about this?
Well, obviously we come from different perspectives. Rahm Emanuel, when he was Chief of Staff for President Obama, opposed immigration reform, according to the newspapers, because he thought the unions would object to it. And in point of fact, what's happened is the unions' opposition has weakened. The support for comprehensive immigration reform on the right has strengthened. You have the National Association of Evangelicals very strongly for immigration reform, the Southern Baptist Convention, the Roman Catholic Church, the Latter-day Saints, the Mormon Church, all the Jewish groups, all the various communities of faith are for comprehensive immigration reform. Every single business, trade association, farm group, rancher group, retailers, restaurateurs, hoteliers, high-tech companies recognize that immigration is America's #1 economic asset. The rest of the world can't do that. We can have every smart person we want, every high-skilled person we want, and a lot of young people just starting out, unskilled, as all Americans do when they're born here, come to this country. And so the business community is for immigration, big businesses, small businesses, high-tech, low-tech, the communities of faith, and the Republican leadership. The future of the Republican Party, Scott Walker of Wisconsin, Rand Paul of Kentucky, Paul Ryan of Wisconsin, Jeb Bush, all of the folks looking to, Bobby Jindal, all of the folks looking to lead the Republican Party at the national level in the future, recognize we should do immigration reform, understanding that the Senate bill is not everything that we want, needs to be reformed, and that there is a deep, deep distrust of Barack Obama, his own piece of legislation, his signature piece of legislation, Obamacare. He's deciding not to enforce certain of the laws that he passed, that he wrote, theoretically. How do you trust him to enforce laws on immigration that the Republicans write in the House? When we figure out how to do that, pass a law that the president has to honor, then immigration reform will move forward. When we have a border security package, and I think that Congressman McCall of Texas's approach is the least expensive, most effective idea out there. It's completely doable. It doesn't take a lot of time. So I think that the hurdles, you can see how we get over them, and the movement towards immigration reform within the communities of faith, the Southern Baptists, the evangelicals, the Catholics, as well as the business community, are all informing Republican congressmen and senators this is the year to move.
Yeah, now this all looks promising when you look at things through the scope of looking at the Republican Party as a national party, but it's a different story when you look at things district by district. And for many conservatives with very conservative districts, amnesty continues to be a dirty word. Many of those staunch conservatives saying that anything that allows anyone to stay here in this country after having been here illegally for any amount of time under any circumstance is in fact amnesty. We have this division, and how long can there, how can there be any movement ahead on this when some Republicans are still classifying amnesty in this way?
Sure. I was looking at polling today. 70 to 80% of Republicans want to move forward on a path to legalization and eventual citizenship if people choose that. The support among Republicans is overwhelming. Now, politicians can be fooled because a few loud voices can sound as if they represent everybody, but a few data points. 2007, President Bush pushed for immigration reform. Its opponents called it amnesty. McCain was for it. It didn't pass because Barack Obama, along with DeMint, cast the deciding vote to put in a poison pill at the behest of the unions. So DeMint and Obama said, let's kill immigration reform, and they put in a union-written, union-backed poison pill to stop future flows of immigration, and the bill died. Barack Obama and DeMint killed it last time around, called it amnesty. And they did so at the behest of the unions. Having done that, we now move forward, and a year later, the Republican Party nominated John McCain as its nominee. Do you really believe that opposition to immigration was a vote-moving issue? Obviously not. It was for the unions. They wanted to kill the bill. But not for Republicans who nominated McCain. The gentleman who introduced the anti-immigrant bill in Arizona, Pierce, was recalled by the voters and defeated. And then he ran for office again and he was crushed. This is not the road to popularity. Arizona, the two senators in Arizona are the most pro-immigrant senators in the country at the border state. So people who say that there's a vote within the Republican Party that moves against immigrants is just factually not accurate. Otherwise, we'd be referring to President Pat Buchanan instead of Pat Buchanan, who got 1% of the vote.
So you're saying voices like Steve King of Iowa, those voices will start to fade here in the near future. You know, King says, you know, with his district, what does he have to gain by supporting something like this when he knows his constituents do not? What kind of leverage does the House leadership, Speaker Boehner, have to, you know, if not convince Steve King of coming out in support of this, maybe just keeping a little bit quieter about his opposition?
Steve King could have been a senator in Iowa if he hadn't been self-identified as anti-immigrant as he has been in his speech. He's not electable statewide. So the cost to Steve King is he can be a congressman, but never anything else, never a governor, never a senator. And I think other congressmen want to vote for what's good for the country, not just what's good for the politics of their monochromatic districts. I mean, I hope and I know from talking to congressmen and senators, a lot of them are patriots. They know that America's competitive advantage, the reason why the United States of America is the future, not Japan, not China, not Europe. America is the future. Why? We do immigration, they don't. Japan is shrinking. They can't have immigrants because culturally they can't do it. China, big country, but they're getting old before they get rich, and they're actually shortly about to have a shrinking, not a shrinking population, but a shrinking population of people of working age. You have a lot of old people, not a lot of people of working age. Europe, we already know, is shrinking already. The United States is growing. We can bring as many young and talented people as we want to into this country, and we assimilate immigrants very, very well. The immigrants that are coming in now marry outside their ethnic group at rates that took other people 100 years in the past. Learn English faster, acculturate faster. People forget. It's always an interesting mix when immigrants come into the country, but we do it better and longer and more competently than any other country, and that's why we're the future and they aren't.
Yeah, China also dealing with a huge, huge disparity of the sexes there. A lot more men than there are women. That's another huge issue for them as well. Now,
that's one of the reasons why they can't change their mind. There aren't enough women to decide, okay, we're going to have lots of children. If you forgot to have women, it's harder to up the number of children you have with any speed.
Yeah, a very clear example of why that one-child policy didn't work. But back to the executive branch in the White House, the incoming Secretary of Homeland Security is going to be key in any future success immigration reform may have. What kind of message can President Obama send with his pick to replace Janet Napolitano? And then are there any names out there you'd like to volunteer?
Well, it's interesting. I think that the law that will be passed will be very strict, not give a lot of flexibility to the Department of Homeland Security and border enforcement. There'll be very serious metrics. that Congress will impose. And the only question is what those will be. Congressman McCall has a very good proposal, Texas conservative congressman. I think his proposal is likely to be the basis for what Congress agrees to and the president's going to be forced to agree to. Remember, the president says he's for this bill. He was president in all of 2009. He was president in all of 2010. Never lifted a finger. When he had the power to do so, because he had supermajorities of Democrats in the House and the Senate, he didn't pass immigration reform. The unions don't want this. The hard left doesn't want this. They have to say they do because they can't oppose it for their own internal political reasons. Republicans are moving this forward because we understand it's solid for the economy. Congressional Budget Office talks about, in their analysis, the strong economic growth it'll create. Holtz Eakin, the former CBO director, good Republican, he says it'll increase revenue just from more economic growth over the next decade by $2.5 trillion. I think that understates the case, but it's a big number one way or the other.
Well, the Secretary of Homeland Security, obviously he's going to be following the rules that Congress puts in place here. But from an optics standpoint and from a perception standpoint, don't you think it's important that the president nominates somebody that House Republicans feel like they can work with?
Yeah, I think that actually might well be part of the negotiation between the House, Senate, and the president. Remember, Obama, when he came in, left Gates, the Republican Secretary of Defense, because he knew that no one had any trust in his capacity to run the Defense Department. And he nominated a Republican senator for Department of Defense. Well, the level of trust on him on border security and those sorts of issues is probably lower today than it was back then on his views of foreign policy. So I think it'd be wise to nominate a Republican general, not some Democrat party hack.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens with that, and along with immigration reform, of course, and taxes as well. The issue of gun control is another one that you are passionate about. I wanted to wrap up this interview by getting your reaction to the comments made yesterday by Attorney General Eric Holder on Stand Your Ground laws. Holder said that they seek to fix something that was never really broken. Some wonder if Holder might tackle this issue in states like Florida and elsewhere where those laws do exist. But what did you think personally about Holder's comments? And if he does try to change these laws, wouldn't that put him at odds with the 10th Amendment of the Constitution?
Yeah, look, Eric Holder and President Obama have both used violence to promote their anti-Second Amendment worldviews. Sadly, the murders up in Connecticut, the president turns around. He doesn't want to deal with crazy people. He doesn't want to deal with the failure to take insane people off the streets. He wants to take your guns away from you. I mean, talk about exploiting a tragedy. How sick, how disgusting and sick of the president to do that again and again and again. If he believed for a moment that taking people's guns away would make them safer, he might have done it in 2009 or 2010 when he had overwhelming majorities in the House and Senate. But he didn't do it then because he didn't care, and he's just playing politics. And it's kind of obvious now. We suspected it in 2009, 2010. We now know that it's all politics with him. Holder says when a guy, Hispanic guy, is jumped on and the guy's on top of him and hitting him, and Zimmerman shoots the guy who's attacking him, that has nothing to do with stand your ground. Stand your ground. Everybody in 50 states, it's the law that if somebody's sitting on top of you and hitting you, or got you in a corner or a place where you can't move, you're allowed to use deadly force to defend yourself if they're threatening you, okay? Stand your ground means you don't have to back up. You don't have to run into another room. You can be out in the open. You don't have to run away. You can be in your house. You don't have to run out the back door, which was present law. When I was growing up in Massachusetts, the court said somebody breaks into your house, you have to run out of your house if you can. You can't defend yourself in your house unless they have you cornered in a room and you can't get out. Well, what happened in Florida was a guy was sitting on top of somebody else and whacking him, according to the witnesses and the evidence, and that means he was in effect cornered. So the stand your ground laws have nothing to do with the Florida case, and Holder is trying to use that issue to attack gun rights and people's rights to self-defense. I mean, That's a particularly vile misuse of the shooting to try and attack a law that the people of many states have decided they want.
And the comments that we heard from Holder, consistent, as you mentioned, with what we've heard from him throughout his tenure as Attorney General. We'll leave it there for now. Grover Norquist, thanks so much for your time. A pleasure talking with you.
Good to be with you.
And thank you for watching Newsmax TV.